Goofy spoils what? Well, I mean, this goofy dude was primarily dealing with who you gonna call jokes, but let's put these back in too, huh? So, with less time constraints, presumably, for a spoiler review, because if I can open-endedly talk, we all have problems. We're all in trouble if we open-endedly allow Zach to just go. So try to keep him under control, right? Anyways, goofy guy here, doing a thing. So talking about Ghostbusters, and then trying to think of it in the context against Halloween Kills, Star Wars Episode 7, the last Ghostbusters version that played out horribly in the PR aspect. That movie had a couple redeeming spots, but it really was a far, far fall. Because the talk since 1980 whatever with the sequel with the Ghostbusters Afterlife, by the way, Ghostbusters Afterlife is the subject if that wasn't already clear, was the fact that it's a continuation of the original two. Most people, myself included, would look for trilogies and, this sense of purpose sometimes to get a third story to close the chapter. Anyways, it was probably just something that Hollywood told us. Not a conversation that I'd like to. I also have another theory, but not the video nor the time. So the nostalgia, it really rides hard, but I don't think it's uncomfortable because they use it through Paul Rudd to explain to this new generation, this new audience of people that have no idea who Ghostbusters are. And our lead star, McKenna, her co-lead, Logan Kim, they are perfect examples of almost literal versions of what you would expect of like trying to share this fake story to the next generation, but they, in their universe, like they're dealing with it for real. That like nobody apparently ever did anything once Egon took care of the big ghost problem. So, spoiler talk as it is, don't forget spoilers, is the fact that the main motivation of this entire through line is the same exact motivation from the original movie. That is unfortunate. I think that's where the nostalgia definitely falls apart. Is the sense that, like, I understand that they didn't forever kill it. I feel like they could have maybe figured out a different ghosty storyline that might have been able to also honor Harold Ramis. But what they did in this movie to actually, like, kind of nod, wink, it's not even a nod, it's on the nose, it's right in your face. The man appears on the screen. I genuinely wonder what actor got to physically play the placehold of Harold Ramis, because he is shown out of scene in the intro because it's X amount of time after Ghostbusters 2, right? And he's trying to officially end the Zool problem. The rule of the two, Keymaster, Gatekeeper, ultimately create this demon god thing, and he knows how to keep it in place. Now, the crux of the story is different, though, because he had to take it with him from New York City and abandon life as he knew it to get there. It's an interesting idea to be noble, and then the rest of the world be pissed that you left them without any explanation. And I understand the need to tell the story. I understand, the desire to tell the story. I understand the motivations and everything, but like having him be a recluse, having Egon be a full-on recluse and just abandon hope, but show glimmers of hope all throughout his non-existence now that he's dead, because that's ultimately what happens. It has to drive the through line, and you have to explain why Harold Ramis ain't actually here. And that's he could have picked up a phone and called his family, surely. That doesn't seem so far-fetched. One does not really understand entirely these thousands of seismic earthquake thingies that he's been monitoring constantly that are causing earthquakes in Oklahoma. Like, again, that's a digress conversation. What's the point of that? It's to create a plot line so that we have something to start on, and to directly connect us to proactively reconnect us back to the originals. That way, I knew that was going to happen. That way, we can, get a chance to show our movie love of the Ghostbusters to the next generation. And I tell you, they did a fantastic job doing that. McKenna Grace literally carries this whole movie. It was described as a mystery machine group all in one character. And I was like, I could see that. She's practically infallible. It's tough, to deal with that because she is, but her acting, her character, they introduced her as a social outcast who's gigantically smart. Lots of people feel that way. Of course you love this little girl already. And she's brilliant, and she's charming, and she's deadpan when she needs to be deadpan. When they use the certain comedy stuff, especially the dad joke stuff, she delivers. She delivers great. And then they have this little podcast kid, Logan. I hate that name so much. Kind of driving her and us through the storyline at certain, and aspects. So he dies. Carrie Coon and family come into town. They don't know him or don't like him. Go to the summer school for some reason. I didn't quite understand that gimmick, except that she's a social outcast. Carrie Coon needs her to, branch outside of her bounds, but it's school where she feels comfortable. I think that's pretty much, So she meets Paul Rudd's character. And then from there, we basically just turn the page. There's your intro. And now you got Ghostbusters, 3, essentially, from there. So things begin to be uncovered, mystery solved, blah, blah, blah. You move the story forward. And if it weren't for, say, the interaction between these two actors right here, I genuinely think that the movie would not work. Because it is playing in this nostalgia factor. I feel like I sound super negative right now, and I love this movie. I did. I don't want it to sound like anything but. I had so much fun. This movie reminded me of Jurassic Park on a number of levels, especially the practical effects. I felt inklings of E.T. I'm like, who finally decided that they could go back and say the 1980s and 90s and kind of start creating a younger person-centric storyline, Jurassic Park, when you get to start to see the lens through the kids in particular. It's not their story, but there are moments there that really create heart. Like Spielberg he's been working with kids for years. Genius, man. You tug at the heartstrings just right with really good actors, and you got something. You got something good, and they did a really good job. They did a great adventure kid movie that I can't wait to share with my family, as I had said in the other. So the jokes in general, I loved them, and I also hated them a little bit once I recognized maybe at least what I thought some of them were. I love what I believe are the COVID jokes. He's like, oh, don't worry, they just dropped like nuclear bombs and all kind of radiation stuff like that. And she's like, well, aren't you worried? He's like, no, I'll just cover my face like this. And he proceeds to take his shirt and do this. And I'm like, if that's not on the nose, literally, come on. I thought it was hilarious. And Paul Rudd, historically, is the same guy that just yelled at us to wear our masks. Now, I still think it's socially cool to not sneeze on your people next to you, regardless of particles that are getting through the mask or whatever the science is. And this is not the time or place. But to point it out in the sense that Paul Rudd made this video about us wearing masks because of those kind of concerns. And then to be in a movie like Afterlife where he would presumably part of a joke that would make like this, right? Going into a biohazard zone of nuclear, like, come on. Anyways, and there was another one too. I wish I remembered it better, but that one stood out. So because of the obvious visual cue, I do wonder if some of the dad jokes also double as dead baby jokes. And I know it's a horrible thing to say out loud, and I just crossed a whole new barrier. I went from COVID to dead babies. But I'm telling you, growing up, I heard some weird dead baby jokes from the most random people, and it's not something I would repeat, aka I'm not going to say any. You want to Google it? Please just do it knowing that it's sick humor. If it's humor, depending on who you are at all. The point is that you substitute that very phrase for polar bears. Something, right? So, like, I forget the phrasing exactly, but it was like, what do a hamster and a cigarette have in common? When you put them in your mouth and light them on fire, and then da-da-da-da. And my brain kind of trailed out at the end of that, and I should probably go to Google it, but conceptually I'm like, I feel like I've heard a version of this before. And then the next one that came around again was just like, I think it was like, who cares? They're dead anyways, or something like that. And I'm just like, again, I'm sensing that, like, those old beats from jokes I heard a long time ago, but just kind of shifted with different language. I found that interesting, if it's even true. If. Illuminati, come on. You don't think he knows? It's all fake. That's why he talks to whoever he wants, whenever he wants. It makes it sound like I'm psychotic when I say stuff like that. Anyways, music, nostalgia, we kind of covered that they really play them both together. You got a nice sense of like 80s adventure music alongside the cast members. I also not listed, and also Carrie Coon, I'm telling you, they got her in to basically be Sigourney Weaver. If you could have seen the acting that she put forth during the demonic possession scene, I have to say, for a kid's film, she was convincing at first, and then they started playing into the comedy as the time went on. But with that possession scene, I was just kind of like, I know her from The Leftovers as Proxima Midnight. She's a phenomenal actress if you've seen The Leftovers, talking about Revelation in that show, and in this very movie, talking about same topic at certain points, and tattooed on Aykroyd's arm, Revelations. Oh, the idea that they conceptually are going spiritual, but then bringing in like the Mayan calendar concept of using numbers and math to read the stars, etc., to predict when the world is going to end. Beautiful concept. It's not our position to know when the world's going to end, is it? Our position should be more concerned about living instead of worrying about when things are going to just be done. Spoiler conversations with Zach. Deep thoughts, too. Who'd have thought? But seriously, if you're so worried about the end result, what are you doing right now? This whole conversation changed. Doesn't matter. It does. I digress. I learned that from watching this past video and actually checking out. I'm like, it does matter. I digress. So, the social awkward. The character was introduced. Truly, she says the words. I need to Google this. She got asked a question. She says, I feel just like you do, but I don't express it that way. I internalize it. Inside, I'm vomiting. When she said that about the situation at hand, which is the parents getting, the love interest between your keymaster and gatekeeper, which hilarious. The whole thing. Paul Rudd had a flower in his ear at one point. I'm just like, are you reprising your role from Our Idiot Brother? Just lounging around, being just kind and just getting the crap kicked out of you? That was a rough movie to watch. It's a shame that, like, bad accidents ruin good intentions. Anyways, weird movie. In I could relate, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. I think, in my experience, I'm an adult 35-year-old male. So to hear those kind of words said out loud sometimes, and I'm more of like, obviously, I approach things pretty directly. But the registering of the emotion thing, like she had described, there's something that touches on a certain level, even inside my art, that I'm like, there are certain emotions that, I don't express well, and that I would be a social awkward person in that regard. Like, I get it. I'm not painting any sad pictures for me. I'm fine. I am just saying, like, I can relate, to an extent. I might not be some 10-year-old little girl, 15-year-old little girl, but I understand the feeling of not feeling socially accepted. I think most people can kind of get that. So the fact that they introduce us to the new character, it's like Ghostbusters isn't socially acceptable to even talk about. So it's almost like she represents Ghostbusters as a whole. This is the franchise's opportunity to be socially acceptable again. Pretty nifty. And again, certain people are going to love it, especially people in my, mental brain range. And that would be like nostalgia again. But we're gonna say it with a smile on our face this time. The nostalgia, once they get past a certain amount of, like, come on. I thought it worked. They used the tools the way they were supposed to be used. They caught the ghosts the way they were supposed to be caught. They advanced some of the stuff that had been kind of sitting dusty, since there's a bigger focus on the end of the world and less like, let's make new gadgets, right? But they get out new gadgets. They get out old gadgets. Of course the car is there. I didn't know it was a Cadillac. That shows you what I know about cars. I can show you that number again if you'd like. But it was cool, I enjoyed all that. And then they bring in Ernie, now at the very end, and all three of them are successful. Venkman has his own thing going on, and of course he and Sigourney have a little scene. They repeat the actual first movie sequence with the cards, and apparently the cards are marked. That's how he's cheating and all this stuff. So he gets shocked like 3 times, and part of me thinks Bill Murray probably actually took some of the shock, but call me nuts. I could be wrong. I bet you Sigourney Weaver could have, like, coached him into it, but, like, they have probably a cool relationship, and he's a pretty chill guy, I think. For a man that wanders around and surprises people in real life, I bet he's pretty chill. And then you get your Aykroyd being the scorned friend, and Ernie goes off to be a businessman. So everybody's got their stories, but businessman's got money. Businessman just forgot that he was a Ghostbuster for a period of time while he was growing his empire, which is global apparently. So he literally just painted himself into like a Batman position to run the Ghostbusters now. That's good setup. They do some after credit sequence. That was an after credits thought. They do some after to light up a New York ghost indicator, based on perceptive value, and it obviously they want to open the door for more of these. It's about money ultimately. Hollywood is a business. Let's not forget. But is it natural? Is it organic? I suppose I felt like the closing of this story and the opening up of new characters to introduce and all that stuff to Ghostbusters didn't necessarily lend it to more. So that part, I'm not sure if I agree for the necessity. I think the other movie I was thinking about, Men in Black, I forgot. This reminded me of going to see Men in Black when I was a kid with my Aunt Sue. Shout out. And I loved it. I had a great time. The practical effects, CGI, the whole lot. But it was really, there's certain things. It just, and I could see a story like that continuing because there's more aliens and more adventures. I didn't necessarily feel a need to show a little light glimmering in New York at the end. Come on. So, especially if I'm supposed to follow these kids, and now it's the old guy's empire, they gotta create excuses to have, endless cash flow, I suppose. That way they're not broken down and out the way they are, technically, and were in that other one. We need a Batman conundrum without the star player being born from hate and crime and death. We need it to be love. Which, something else, I forgot to mention this whole time. Obviously, I'm happy about this movie and everything, and I would exude some form of loving towards it. But I would say that was a phrasing that got used in another video I watched real quick. It's like, this movie really wants to push forward like a more positive feeling thing. And I'm like, that's not so bad. Oh, that's not so bad. Alright, I'll stop jabberjawing. I hope you enjoyed this. I look forward to any feedback. I haven't even looked at the comment section of the other ones. And part of the reason is because I already got taught not to look at it. It's a shame, but, we'll see what happens on that. Goofy guy out.